Hey everyone, I'm Julia Kaufman from the Tulip Blockchain Conference, and I'm here having a conversation with Bryan from EOS Tribe. Jake, why don't you tell me a little bit about EOS Tribe and what it is and how it's involved in the EOS ecosystem?
Right, EOS Tribe is a block producer candidate. So we're one of 150 different groups that are basically running to become the block producers. And so what that basically means is there'll only be 21 block producers at the end of the day who will actually be producing blocks for the blockchain itself. So this is this type of system is called delegated proof of stake. So
delegated proof of stake. That's different than regular proof of stake.
Yes, and it's also different than proof of work. So with delegated proof of stake, people are voted in to actually produce the blocks, and they do have to hold up a certain amount of EOS to stake that the fact that they're actually going to be producing blocks efficiently and correctly as well.
Okay.
And that's different than also proof of work, because delegated proof of stake, you just have servers, and you have backup servers, and you have full nodes, and then you have all this capacity for storage and bandwidth and RAM, and so you don't just provide a hashing algorithm and computational power as a service. You do a lot more than that. You provide back to the community by building dApps and educating people and just helping other people out. It's really a collaborative effort.
Okay. So before we started, we were talking a little bit about what's a block producing candidate, what that even means. There's 21 of them. So let's just drill down to give our viewers sort of a real life example of what is a block producing candidate, right? So you work for EOS Tribe.
Yes.
And there's servers, right, that mine these blocks that go into the blockchain, and this is different than a mining rig for Bitcoin, which could sit in someone's apartment or a warehouse. You have 21 individual servers that sit all over the world, and your specific one for EOS Tribe, and other ones I guess is like EOS New York, EOS Dallas, but EOS Tribe sits in, you said Wyoming and Utah.
In Wyoming and Utah, yes.
So Wyoming and Utah, there's a main server, and then you have backup servers.
Yes.
Has a main server in Wyoming?
Yeah, main server in Wyoming, and then a backup block producer in Wyoming. And then in Utah, they have a full node and also another backup server there as well.
Okay. So two servers for one block producing candidate? And
it's actually more, it can be more than that, because depending on the network load.
Got it.
So we have the ability to spin up other nodes, but our main nodes right now are just these full bare metal server racks. But we can always spin up another instance somewhere else around the world with AWS or DigitalOcean, but we don't do that right now.
Okay. And then we also talked about this a little bit before we began, but for our viewers, you think that, so you have servers that sit in Wyoming, Utah, but his team of EOS Tribe, there's a digital marketing strategist, there's a content person. How many people are on that team?
Yeah, there's 5 people on the team.
Right.
There's Eugene Luskin, he's the technical lead, and he's the co-founder. And then there's Steve Floyd, he's a digital content strategy guy. He does a lot of graphic design. Then there's me, I do content creation and white paper generation. And then there's Steve's wife, Anna. She's PR and head of community. And then we have Raleigh Felton from Virginia. He does a lot of the graphic design. He's the one who actually made the infographic about all the different dApps in the EOS ecosystem.
Okay.
It's a very cool application.
So fascinating to me, right? You think you see, server and you have a technical lead, but then you have all these other people. So my question was, why does a server in Wyoming need a digital marketing strategist? Right? Like why? So Jake was going through this because they're building an ecosystem. They're building all these dApps.
And we're building a community.
Other apps on top of EOS. So actually, let me segue into my next question. How is EOS different from Ethereum? Right? They're both these sort of ecosystems where you can build apps on top of them, sort of like analogous to the App Store, right? Like you have the iOS Apple App Store, and then you have apps that go on top of it. So EOS is kind of analogous to that. How is it different than Ethereum?
Right. The main difference is governance.
Okay, so governance is, to our viewers, the delegated proof of stake. So delegated proof of stake is what EOS is on, and Ethereum is obviously on proof of work. Okay, so governance.
Yeah. So governance. So we have token holders that vote people in, and then we have a constitution that we have to abide by, and different rules like that. And then another one is transaction throughput. EOS has 1,000 transactions a second, whereas Ethereum has 30.
That's a big level of magnitude.
It is. And another aspect to that is Ethereum, you have to pay transaction fees. In EOS, there are no transaction fees.
Okay, and what he means by transaction fees is, let's say I want to send, let's say 1 Ethereum to Jake, I have to pay what's called a gas. And I mean, it's small, it could be like 20 cents. Let's say I want to pay 20 cents, maybe it'll go in 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But let's say I increase my gas and I'll pay 30 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents, 10 more cents. Maybe now instead of 3 minutes, it's going to take 2 minutes. So the more I pay in transaction fees, the faster it's going to get to Jake. But in EOS, there's none of that. You don't have to pay any transaction. So it sends it immediately and really quickly. But how do they make their money?
They make their money through inflation.
Okay, what does that mean? What do you mean?
Increasing the coin supply.
Ecosystem. So
it's like what the central bank does already, but right now what we're doing is we have it in code, and it goes certain places. So 1% of the inflation goes to block producers, and then the other 4% of the inflation goes to a worker proposal program to improve the blockchain and to make it better in some manner. And so,
worker proposal program? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So basically, people will query the blockchain, say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to add value to the blockchain, and then the token holders will say yes or no.
Hold on. Someone's going to say they're going to add value to the blockchain, like they're creating a dApp? What does that mean, they're going to add value to the blockchain?
It usually means that they're going to make improvements to the blockchain.
To the protocol.
Right.
Like they can, because it's open source, so they can...
Yeah, or provide some other sort of service. Like EOS Go, they're a neutral media company that works with all the block producers and to basically mitigate through the politics and just become an independent source of media. So they can query the worker proposal fund to keep on running that as a main source of information gathering and community collaboration as well.
Okay. So let me stop a little bit right here. I know we've gone through a lot of the fundamentals, but let me go on why this is important now. Why is everyone talking about EOS right now? Like this whole conference that I'm here at, the Tulip conference in San Francisco, it's basically dedicated to EOS, right? And EOS has been trying to launch for about a year, and recently they're close to launching.
Yeah.
They basically almost launched. Maybe we're going to go into this a little bit, but they've had some hiccups, right? So my first question is, one, why is it so important right now? And is it because of the launch? And two, what's happening with the launch? Why was there hiccups? Can you go through that a little bit?
So why EOS is so important is the fact that you have all these different functionalities that are now being built into the system, so where if someone scams you, you can have proper recourse to get your funds back.
If someone scams you, you have proper recourse.
So like
walk me through
with Ethereum ICO scams, usually they're the code is law. Whatever you write into it is law, and if you, the user, send these people money, then you're fronting the bill. But if it's a scam and the community recognizes it in EOS,
the ICO is a scam.
Yeah, or that dApp was a scam, or that person whose account is on there, they can freeze that account, and so
EOS can freeze it because they have the governance system.
Yeah, they have that governance system and arbitration built into it, so they can actually make real-world changes. So where let's say they had this big DAO fund a couple years ago.
DAO. So when I hear DAO, I think DAO attack. What's DAO? What
the DAO hack. The Decentralized Autonomous Organization.
Decentralized Autonomous Organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the first of its kind. It was in Ethereum, and they had this big bug in the code. So where this person was basically taking out tens of millions of dollars out of the fund, and then they froze the code, and then they had to reverse the and hard fork away from the blockchain so they could give the money back to the people.
That's how Ethereum Classic kind of formed.
Yeah, that's how Ethereum Classic formed.
Okay.
So with EOS, you won't have to do that anymore. It's just built into the system. Block producers can freeze accounts and then reverse transactions if they find it in accordance with governance and arbitration metrics. The process, they can reverse those things.
So I see this layer of governance adding on top that we talked about. But then I sort of think, this whole part of decentralizing everything.
Right, but it doesn't
kind of go against that?
Right, but it doesn't mean that we go back in time with all these, functionality that our common finance system has made already and just get rid of that completely and start from the ground up. There's a lot of functionality in use for arbitration and working between people, account freezing because your things got stolen, or you lost your keys so you can get new ones back. these methods and ways people interact with finance already is something that we need to work around and work with, because people aren't going to change that much.
Right.
We need to change and to provide the services that people actually in the market actually want right now, rather than just trying to change it entirely.
Okay,
Because
so
it's easier
and the way EOS is doing it, obviously is different Ethereum. Is it different than Neo or Waves or any of these? I've seen slides and there's like 20 of these ecosystems on these slides, like Neo. How is it different than Neo? Is governance the only thing that differentiates it?
Neo is a fork of Ethereum.
Okay,
and then,
so it's a different governance. It's proof of work versus delegated proof of stake.
Yeah.
Waves, what about Waves?
I don't know anything about Waves.
It's a Russian, anyways.
Okay.
Okay, so and who else has delegated proof of stake? I think we talked about this earlier.
There's the Steam blockchain.
Which is Steemit. You guys probably read articles on Steemit. Okay.
And then there's also BitShares.
BitShares.
Which was the first project Dan Larimer did after Bitcoin. It's a decentralized exchange, crypto exchange.
But EOS is the only ecosystem that is based on this governance, the delegated. Is that correct? Is that safe to say?
It's the first of its kind.
Okay.
But it still has that model with delegated proof of stake, like you vote in people who produce blocks.
Got it.
But in EOS, it's the first one to have a constitution, to have this arbitration method, so people can have recourse for wrongful deeds that happen from people.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were talking about the reason now, it's here, it's because it's launching, so everyone's paying attention to it. But also there's been some hiccups. So what are the hiccups?
The main thing is security, and it hasn't really been vetted properly as a software tool. Usually you would have months in order to secure the block, secure this software, even if it's menial, with traditional software processes. But with this, it's just no. Block One gave it out, and then that's it.
And Block One is the company that's working on EOS.
So what Eugene and a lot of other folks from
Eugene is the technical lead from
EOS Tribe. And with EOS, the EOS Ghostbusters, which is now EOS Core, which is now EOS BP Infrastructure. They've had
a lot of name changes.
Yeah, a lot of name changes, but they had to provide a secure method so where the block producers are abstracted away, so where they don't have can't be attacked by malicious actors.
Okay.
But you do have public-facing front full nodes, so you can see what's going on in the blockchain and interact with it that way. So they've had to do a lot of security measures to add on to it, because it just it's not secure. They haven't had good enough time to actually do that process. So I feel like either today or tomorrow they're going to launch the chain.
They're going to launch it. You guys are watching this today. It might get launched today.
Yeah.
So, and something I saw on Twitter was some of the core developers were posting bounties.
Yes, bounties.
Of like $10,000 if you can find a bug, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think a couple of them, people found bugs and they got paid $10,000.
Yeah.
And how are they getting paid through EOS? Are they using their own ecosystem?
Well, it's not up yet, so they can't. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
But still, they're going to be either being paid out in fiat or Ethereum or something like that.
So people are finding bugs and they're helping them out to be able to launch, and you think it's going to happen today or tomorrow?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then it gets launched, and then everyone gets their tokens distributed.
Everyone initially has their tokens distributed to their accounts, and people need to vote. So that's
also,
important.
like right now, you can buy EOS on an exchange like Binance, right?
Yeah.
So right now, if I buy EOS, it's not launched yet. I just buy the token. When it gets launched, you assume the token appreciates. But it might not. You never know.
Well, see, the thing with this launch process and why it took so long was because they wanted to make sure it couldn't be taken down. You don't really want a blockchain to come up and say, oh, it's going to solve these problems. It just be immediately taken down by some 15-year-old kid in China, So. But
even with this checks and balances of like the 21 people, like someone could just, like you said, some kid not even here, could like hack it and the whole thing goes down.
Right.
And the checks and balances of the 21 producers don't work. Like
it's
like how does one person poke a hole in it?
So before the security measures were made with the private mesh network that they're doing, then people could have done something to attack it, DDoS attack it. They could have done some other.
What's that? What's a DDoS?
Distributed denial of service.
Distributed denial of service, DDoS attack. Okay.
Yeah, so they basically would have all these computers around the world and just constantly sending data in requests to these servers and just completely overload
overwhelms
them.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it just crashes.
Yeah.
It's not really like.
Or it's
they
not that it
found
crashes; it's that it can't send anything out because there's too much
too
data
much stuff
on
coming
the.
in. So how do they prevent from someone doing that?
So they have a multi-tiered system. So they have a secure mesh network in between all the block producing nodes, and then those interact with their full nodes that can or don't have to be public facing, and then they also have an API that's further abstracted so it can go through and talk with the different full nodes to actually interact with the blockchain. So I don't know all the technical specifics of what's going on, but it's a lot of extraction away so you protect yourself.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're going through. They're trying to fix all these holes. You know, everyone's busting their.
Busting their ROM.
Yeah. And actually, I was down here earlier, and there were some developers literally working, probably like a foot away from me. Like, I'll put a picture on it, but
yeah, I went and got them coffee.
Yeah, I met some core EOS developers. Like, they're busy. They're really working on it, and it's so cool to hear about it from someone that's involved in one of the block producing facilities.
Yeah.
Only 21 of them, or candidates.
There's 150 candidates.
Oh, 150 candidates.
But there's
21. So let's go through the selection process. How do you become number 21?
You get elected in by EOS token holders. So that's a key thing. You need to vote if you're a token holder out there.
So once it's launched, you can vote on EOS Tribe.
Yes.
To become one of the 21. So the 21 aren't chosen yet at all.
No.
It's all chosen by the token holders. And the more tokens you have, the more voting power you have.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm having a light bulb moment. Maybe you are too. So, and all these groups have Telegram. I'm like probably in like 10 of them. There's like EOS Austin, EOS New York. There's
to be
EOS
honest,
Ghostbusters. They all change their names. 150 of them.
Yeah.
And they all have huge.
It's not just Telegram. There's WeChat because a lot of people are in China as well.
Okay.
But to be honest, a lot of us block producers and just community members are tired of Telegram. So #delete Telegram.
Wait, what? I do everything on Telegram. Why?
I'm just kidding around.
Okay.
But it's just it gets overwhelming sometimes,
It is. I probably have like 100 chats. I'm serious. I just sign up for everything.
He doesn't know how to say no, guys.
Yeah, I don't know how to say no. So it's an exciting time for EOS, and we have Jake here from EOS Tribe talking to us about EOS at the Tulip conference, which basically is in conjunction with EOS. A lot of companies are here presenting their ideas that will be built on top of EOS, which is a DApp. What does DApp stand for? Decentralized
application.
Application. What's PP?
Application.
Oh,
APP.
Got it. DApp. Decentralized app.
No, we learn something every day.
You do. You learn something every day. And that's it.
Yeah.
Did I? How about this? I'm going to turn the question on you. Did I ask anything that I should have asked?
I felt like you covered everything. I think you did a really good job here.
Okay.
People, subscribe and like this girl's channel. She's the #1. All right.
Number 1. You heard it right here. All right. Thanks. Have a good one.